Now it's time to take a look at some tech opportunities for you, even some e-commerce type names. James Cakmak is with us, and Tuna Amobi, James Cakmak, partner at Clockwise Capital, and Tuna Amobi, director, senior equity strategist at CFRA Research. So I'll start with you, Tuna. I know you were looking at tech as a broad-based brush, and then you do like names like Amazon, for example, some things in the e-commerce world. Tuna, what are your thoughts these days?
This year really is a year that we see secular trends in e-commerce continuing. I think COVID-19 tailwinds has provided some tailwinds for e-commerce. You're seeing more and more bifurcation against brick and mortar stores. That dynamic is likely to continue, which is why you see names like Amazon and Wayfair and Etsy gaining share in their respective categories. Amazon obviously is kind of the, if you want to call it, jack of all trade. And I think what's also happening is that the logistics infrastructure, which is very critical to keep up with this huge increase in demand, has pretty much kept pace across the board. So I think the major e-commerce players have this fortuitous advantage coming into the onset of COVID-19. This year, I think as you kind of look out in the second half of the year, a lot of that market share gains should be consolidated. And that's why we continue to like Amazon as a buy and Wayfair as a buy as well. Etsy, we have a hold on it partly on relative valuation. But all in all, I don't think that there's anything at this point that really changes our longer term expectation, other than the fact that COVID has really provided some changes in consumer behavior that makes more and more consumers more apt to shop online as opposed to going to the stores, and some of that will stick.
Yeah, and that's right. People have gotten very comfortable shopping online. Some new habits that we've attained have helped our lives in many ways, and people like that. And I think you're onto something. People will continue to shop online. James, what are you thinking these days? Obviously, we've had a sell-off in this market, the biggest that we've seen in months. What are the opportunities at this point to say, hey, I'm going to get in here? What would you suggest? So this would be a longer term play going. I mean, obviously you have the second half of the year where people are betting on reopening and something a little more normal.
Yeah, I mean, like Tuna mentioned, you have the behavioral changes on the consumer front, but at the same time, you have an accelerant on the business side as to how businesses rethink how they operate and their first principles of operation. And we think that is a further catalyst toward the digitization of businesses as we go forward. And I think, with the broader market, you see these ebbs and flows. Obviously, we had a huge run up into this first quarter earnings period. So there is a little bit of sell the news happening. But at the same time, when you think about business cycles over time, the fact of the matter is that no matter what happens with business cycles, technology always iterates and always moves forward. And that's kind of the way we think about it. Right. So in terms of investment, we kind of view the market in three buckets. On the one side, you have what is absolutely the most essential technology infrastructure out there. And like Amazon, obviously Apple, being absolutely essential infrastructure providers. And then you have the companies that are riding on top of that infrastructure, which are the emergent services that are leveraging the cloud. We invest in companies like Square there. We just recently built a position in a firm that is really changing behavior and changing kind of the legacy paradigm.
Makes
and then
sense.
Lastly, it's the legacy companies that have been around a long time, but the proliferation of new emergent technologies is opening up windows for them to really gain market share in a way that they hadn't before. And that's a company like Dana Automotive that provides drivetrains for electric vehicles. So that's kind of the buckets that we view it, and those are things that will continue to iterate and move forward.
Tuna, I want to take what James is saying and move it forward as we talk about the different areas that we could see growth. I mean, we talk about long legacy companies. Tuna, I know you've mentioned streaming and Disney and things like that. We've had some great conversations about that. I also think of cloud, robotics, AI, FANG. What else grabs your attention most, Tuna?
All of the above. I think what's really intriguing here is that a lot of the companies in the media and TMT space are actually looking for ways to latch on to some of these newer technologies and use them to kind of make their operations much more efficient and much more streamlined. So in tandem with that, you're seeing a lot of consolidation, cutting out the layers and using technology to really increase the touch points of consumers. So cloud, for example, that's something that you see across the board, across the landscape. And I think what you're likely to see, Nicole, in 2021 is really a convergence of all of these kind of newer technologies and see more and more applications. And, the FANG names, for example, are always going to be at the forefront of that. And then you've got some of the ancillary players as well. So I think the convergence is good. And what that means is that, consumers can rely on much more efficient and much more cost-efficient services, and companies can be able to use them to protect their margins, because that's really something that has come under pressure based on a lot of the other unrelated expenses, whether it's content or infrastructure, et cetera. So margin focus is going to be really, really important as we kind of think about all these new technologies.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's some great opportunities. I'll give you 10 seconds, James, to finish this up for us.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think one of the things that you're all going to see with the value companies, that COVID has really helped to, right-size these companies and think about their production, manufacturing, and really how do you operate in a distributed workforce fashion. So I think that there's an opportunity on the legacy front just as much as on the emergent technologies that are proliferating right now in the market.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. And, I think of a name like Amazon that you have a buy on, Tuna, and it's run up, but we're still going to be using it as going forward. So I see what you mean. Tuna Amobi of CFRA Research and James Cakmak of Clockwise Capital. Thank you both, gentlemen. Great conversation. I really appreciate it.